Hi, I'm Paul from Trending Who, What, Where, and When. Today I'll be speaking with the award-winning author and poet Billy J. Barnum about his book, Move Over Shakespeare, Tales from the Baron. Billy will be joining us from Ansonia, Connecticut.
My name is Billy J. Barnum. I'm the world famous author of the poetry book Move Over Shakespeare, Tales from the Baron. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, booksamillion.com. It's doing well in the UK, all over the world. I'm at what's called the Riverwalk right here in Ansonia, Connecticut. And as you can see, all these bricks, these are all laid as memory to people, firemen, organizations that actually are no longer here with us today. And I'm actually at the Riverwalk once again at Ansonia, Connecticut. And I'm going to show you the Riverwalk in a moment. The Riverwalk, it's a trail that basically stretches around the river, and it goes for about 1.5 miles. So you can walk around, and some people like to jog around it. And we're actually only a few miles from Bridgeport, Connecticut, from where my famous relative P.T. Barnum, the greatest showman on earth from the circus, that's where he died and that's where he lived.
Where your favorite spots around Ansonia, Connecticut are where you would take them when they came to visit you?
Well, there's a few different spots. I sent you, a lot of pictures of a couple spots. One is called the Ansonia Nature Center. Pretty cool. They have some things inside. It's not that huge, but it's big enough where they have some reptiles, some exotic birds, and they also have all types of stuff like that, where they do small tours and stuff like that. And people come in, they tell them all about the nature and all the animals that they have inside there. They have some snakes and stuff like that. And then they even do walking tours. There's big wooded area for miles behind it. And they'll do walking tours where they bring kids from school on walking tours and other people. So it's pretty cool. The other place I sent you, it's called the Riverwalk. It's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles, and it goes along a river. And basically it's about probably 8 to 10 feet wide, like a strip of cement. And basically it winds around. People go there to actually walk. Some people even ride bikes around it. And believe it or not, it leads right from where I live, Ansonia, Connecticut. And when you get to the other end, you're actually in the next town over, which is Shelton, Connecticut, in the center of town. So you can, if you don't drive, the highways between that. But if you take that Riverwalk, you end up in the next city in the downtown area, and you can get there just by walking that trail without driving.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It is.
I'm going to go back and say that I very much enjoyed reading your poetry, and I loved the interview that you did with Al Cole. I thought Al Cole and you did a very interesting interview.
He has a really unique voice, huh?
He does. Very
Yeah,
polished.
he is. Believe it or not, I did not know who he was before I got the spot on there with. It's called People of Distinction, which as you said, if you listened to the whole interview, I think what was it, about an hour?
I listened to it twice.
Did you? He's interviewed. He's got a. If you go on Google and look him up, and a page will come up. He's interviewed presidents, movie stars, everybody, and people that he has on his show. The reason it's called People of Distinction is which, I'm not bragging, but the only way you get on that show is if he considers you a person of distinction. So that was one of the biggest honors of being an author.
Yeah, it turned out good. It was very interesting.
I appreciate it.
You covered a lot of material.
Yeah, it was a cool experience.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you about a few more places in Ansonia, if that's okay.
Sure.
I've got a list here. Bad Sons Beer Company Craft Brewery.
Yep, they make craft brew, of course. I've actually never been there myself, honestly, because I don't drink too much, just on special occasions. But my friend, he goes there regularly. He drives a motorcycle, so of course, a lot of places gather motorcycle people, of course. But he's really cool. He's one of my good friends since I was little. and he said it's phenomenal. He always keeps trying to tell me I should go, so I am going to head there one of these days.
Incredible ratings, really great ratings for there. Church of the Assumption.
That probably most likely may be not far from me, probably about a mile away. And if I'm not wrong, that may be a place that they always have a sign out, I think, on Sunday where they do Sunday dinners where all is welcome. They charge like $4 or something like that, but you get a whole big spaghetti dinner and stuff like that. So, it's partially where they're collecting a little bit, to take up a collection, but also feeding the community as well. So that's pretty cool.
Looked like a beautiful church.
Yeah.
Okay. Osborne State Park.
Osborne Dale State Park.
Okay.
Yep. No, I know. I understand. But yeah, my girlfriend loves going there all the time. I've been there a few times. There is, I think it's like a pond. So I think it's not big enough to be distinguished as something bigger than the pond. But there is a pond there, and they do stock it, I think, with trout and stuff like that. And I have been there before where basically the kids love to go fishing there. So you're almost guaranteed to catch something. All they take is a little piece of corn and put it on the hook, and that's all you need basically.
Ask you to tell us a little bit more about being a direct descendant of P.T. Barnum.
Well, of course, I got the name. So my last name is Barnum. My first name is Billy. I have a cousin named Billy. I have uncle who unfortunately passed away recently named Billy. And my grandfather was also named Bill as well, William or Bill Barnum. P.T. Barnum, he died in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is not far from where I live. And I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut. He was my grandfather's grandfather. Now, of course, some people may dispute that. I used to do a radio show years ago, and I did it for 7 years. And I'll tell you a funny story if you want to hear it.
Sure.
Well, basically, I mentioned one day, P.T. Barnum was my second great grandfather. And then after the break, I went to music, put the music on. So a few weeks later, I get into the studio, and the studio manager says, "You got a letter?" And I said, "Really? I never got a letter there." He goes, "You got a letter?" I said, "Okay." So I opened it up, and I read it. There was no return address, no signature or anything, but it said, "You are full of you know what, that there's no possible way you can be you cannot be P.T. Barnum's second great grandfather because he only had daughters, and they would have taken their husband's last name. So there's no possible way I can be a Barnum or a direct, I could be a direct descendant, but not his second great grandson." But luckily for me, my cousin, whose name is Billy Barnum as well, is a few years older than me. He researched it for years and years, and he produced, and I have 2 certificates. I have my grandfather's death certificate and his grandfather's death certificate. My grandfather lists his father as his name was Percival Tracy Barnum. And on Percival Tracy Barnum's certificate, it listed his father clearly as Phineas Taylor Barnum. So he had an illegitimate son, and that is on Google, and you can research that he did have an illegitimate son. And he named him Percival Tracy Barnum, and Percival Tracy had my grandfather, and my grandfather had my father, and so on.
I was going to ask if you got a lot of positive attention from the Barnum name.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I published a book and people recognized the name. And like I said, of course, I didn't get his fortune. So, of course, I'm hoping to make a name for myself. And of course, I want to get the book out there and the word out there. And, but I did get the name, and I'm going to carry on the name, of course, as best as I can. So,
yeah, I would think you'd get a lot of VIP treatment when you go places. People would recognize the name, and you'd be upgrades to your room or to your table or things like that.
Well, the craziest thing is, even before the book came out, more people know me than I know them. So I would go out years before the book came out, for years. And I'd go places and say, "Hey, what's up, Bill?" And I just look at him. And then they say, hey, how you doing? And I go, oh, I'm doing great. And then I'd look at them again. And I go, do I know you? They're like, yeah, don't you? And I go, unfortunately, I don't remember. So, I don't know who you are, but more people know me than I know them.
So how did your writing career begin, and how did it evolve into becoming published?
Well, that's a great story. And of course, a great story deserves to be written. So who knows? Maybe someday I'll write about that. But when I was younger, um, basically, people used to walk around, and I was early in my early teens, and they would play air guitar. And I started going to concerts, and I'd see everybody play air guitar everywhere I went. And I said, you know what? I'm going to buy a guitar, and I'm going to learn how to play guitar because I don't want to just play air guitar. So I bought a guitar off a friend, and I taught myself. So I'm self-taught. And then I got good enough where I started a band. And of course, I started writing songs. And most people say a lot of songs could be a form of poetry. So it just evolved into that where I started writing poems also. But of course, I would never want those poems to be a song because I considered them separate than being a song. I just wanted them to be a poem. And then I continued writing poems. And I used to go places all the time, and I'd go out and I'd, be at a party or a gathering, and I'd say, hey, I wrote a new poem yesterday. And everybody would gather around, 40, 50, 60 people, and they'd all gather around. They turn the music off, and they all gather around, and they go ahead. And they wanted to hear me recite it. So I'd recite the poems such as The Unforgotten Tale, Black Rose. And when I got to the end, they would just be silent, and then they'd say, who wrote that? And I said, I just told you I just wrote that yesterday. And they go, there's no way you wrote that poem. I said, I wrote the poem. And they said, no, that sounds like some Shakespeare kind of stuff, because that is crazy if you wrote that poem. Hence the title in the book, Move Over Shakespeare, because I never read Shakespeare in my life, to be honest with you. But I know who Shakespeare is, and I know that every day you still hear about him from however long ago he wrote whatever he wrote. And for them to say that something I wrote sounded like Shakespeare, that is another big honor as well. So basically, all they would say to me is, you got to do something with that. And I said, what do you mean? They said, you need to publish that someday. So we're going back 20 to 30 something years ago where I wrote most of the poems in the book. And I had them with me, and I carried them from residence to residence to residence. And a couple years ago, I had them in the bottom of my file cabinet drawer. And I was going to college, and I got my associate's degree in cybersecurity. And basically, yep, and I was on winter break, and I had about 6 weeks to kill. So I just sat there one day and I said, you know what? I just took it out the drawer and I started typing 4 or 5 hours a day like a maniac. And I put it all into one huge Word document. And I said, I'm just going to submit it. And I submitted it, and I got a phone call a couple weeks later, and they said, we'd like to publish your book. Obviously, as you can imagine, I was out of my mind. And I said, how do we get started? And I said, since everybody told me you got to do something, I said, I'm just going to do it. Took a long time, but I did it.
Would you read one or more of the poems for us?
Absolutely. The one I'm going to do, because I've recited so many times and I know it by heart, I'm going to do the first poem in the book, which is called The Unforgotten Tale, Black Rose. The rose that burns before my eyes will soon, my friend, again arise. My soul it burns with strong desire to find lit the rose on fire. My life has been a tragic waste. I do not bleed, but blood I taste. The rose was black like night, my child, like the stallion I rode when I was wild. The sun's no more, the earth I see will linger in my memory. When I am gone, please carry on and journey till the quest is done. This magic seed that seems bestilled was once the rose that evil killed. My fondest wish I now behold, the rose it grows so true and bold. And black as night, just like it was, and give it light and give it love. If tales were told about the thorn, I'll tell you one, but do be warned. The rose that burned so big and high that reached into the mystic sky, the world it shook, the sky turned black, the children cried, and the moon it cracked. I feared this once, but I never knew that a sky so black was once so blue. The fate you see is in your hand, so go, my son, and make a plan. The rose it grows one day again, but only you will know just when. And when it does, all that you see will only be a memory.
Thank you, Billy.
You're welcome.
You have a real range of emotion in your poetry.
Yes, I do. You're correct. Hopefully, when the readers read it, they feel in the words what I just did as a spoken form. Hopefully, they can echo that in their head when they read it.
Your readers have different favorites, or do they all like the same ones, or the same poems?
Most everybody has a different favorite, and that poem, such as that one, and a lot of other ones, if you can tell me what it means, that'd be awesome. But I'm gonna bet you can't, because to everybody that reads it, it means something different. You can think it means one thing. You may read it a month later, say, I don't think that's what it means. I think it means this. And people could have a debate about it, where they can do this poetry readings in groups and stuff, and they can debate it because it means something different to everybody. My son loves my book, and he loves the poem, The Missing Piece. Somebody else told me they loved the poem, The Color Blue. A lot of people love The Unforgotten Tale, Black Rose. People tell me to them it reminds them of the old poem called Footprints in the Sand. Sold millions and millions and millions of plaques and posters, and people had them hanging on their walls everywhere for years and years. Footprints in the Sand.
Will there be any follow-up books to follow up Move Over Shakespeare, Tales from the Baron?
That is another great question. Now, one of my good friends, he lives in Maine now. He used to live here, and he is a writer. He's a singer, and he starts trying to do movies, and now he's in Maine. He's making awesome paintings that are blowing me away. World-class paintings that could match up there probably with Rembrandt's. And that's what he does now. So he found his calling. But he said, obviously, when the book came out, people always ask me as well, are you working on another book? And my response was, I want to see how this one goes first. So I want to gauge how it goes and what people think. And the way I wrote the poems for the first book, that one there, is the poems just came to me. So I didn't sit down with a notepad and a pen and say, I'm going to write a poem today. Stuff came to me, and I just had to write it down quickly before I lost it. And some of the poems, I don't even know where they came from, but they just came into my head. So I really haven't had that much lately, but now we're in the pandemic, which when we're quarantined. And a few months ago, my friend kept saying, you should do a follow-up. And I said, obviously, I don't want to just write something down, because to me won't be a good poem if I just write it down. I want it to come to me. That's how it works. That's the process. And a few months ago, one night I couldn't sleep. It was 12:30, just couldn't sleep. 1 o'clock, I'm like, I can't sleep. And something was coming to me, and I was just going to just ignore it and try to go to sleep. But I said, I'm just not going to. So I got up in the middle of the night. I turned the lights on. I got the notebook, and I just started scribbling. I don't even know what I'm writing. I'm just writing like crazy. And I wrote a couple poems, and now I am writing my second book, and I'm working on it.
Okay, we'll look forward to that. The reader's favorite 5-star award, what was involved with winning that?
Well, basically, I put my book on their site because, of course, I have my book on. If you just type it in Google, you're probably going to find 100, 200 sites that it's on. It's being sold all over the world, of course. If you go on Amazon, it's in every language and everything. But I submitted my book after it came out to that site. And then basically, I submitted a request to see if they would review it. And they did accept that. And they did the review. And that was the rating that I got. I got the top of the 5-star review. It was a great review. I did put it on Amazon because they said it's obviously we gave you the review. You can post it anywhere you want. So that's how that came about.
Would you share with us any advice you would have for new writers?
My advice would be a lot of writers have a similar probably way of writing as me, where some writers may actually sit down and say, I'm going to write 10 pages today, where they're writing an actual book and a story and not just poetry. And they'll do their 10 pages and move on. But a lot of writers are probably like me, where when something comes to you, you just got to write it down. And I don't care if you're out somewhere, whatever it may be, you got to have a paper and pen on you, no matter where you're at, because if you don't write it as soon as it comes to you, then you may remember part of it and write it down later that day or the next day. And it would sound similar, but there's no possible way it would be as great as it was if you wrote it down right away, because when it starts coming to you, it just comes out. And the best advice I would have is, if you've written something and you feel that your work is complete, you've checked it once, you've checked it twice, you may have even got an editor and edited it, and you know it's ready to go out, but you still have some doubt in your mind and you're nervous about releasing it, don't wait. Put that book out. Let the readers decide what they think of it. And it doesn't matter if 10 people say they don't like it and 150 say they love it, because if the majority loves it, then what you wrote and your gut feeling, knowing that you needed to get something out to the world, was true. Let it go. Just get it out there.
How did you choose Page Publishing? What was involved with making that decision?
Basically, I seen a commercial, and I've actually never seen the commercial since. I've only seen it like once or twice ever, and it said if you're an author and you like to submit. So I wrote down the number, and then after I finished typing everything up and stuff like that, I basically contacted them, seen where I could submit my book to, and submitted it.
They seem like a really friendly company. They had a great website.
They did, and they did my cover art, the art department, and they did it perfect because I told them everything I wanted to a detail. I wanted the old 1800 style desk. I wanted the old candle and the old candle style holder. And I wanted the page with part of the, if you get a chance, which is kind of cool, if you zoom in on my book cover, you'll see the first 2 lines of that Unforgotten Tale, Black Rose, is scribbled on that page. If from afar, you can't notice it.
Okay.
So they did every detail I asked them perfect the first try, which was kind of cool.
And it looks like they help you with distribution and things like that too.
They do. They submitted to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, booksamillion.com. I'm basically, like I said, you can go to any website that sells books, no matter what is, even your local one, and you could order my book. Just to take this opportunity while we're on the line, I do want to say to everyone watching this, and if you do share this video, it would be phenomenal. I want them to subscribe to your channel. I hope that everyone stay safe, wear the mask anytime you're in public. We know what's going on right now on the news regarding the president. Please wear your mask and stay safe so we can all, if you do get a copy of this book, enjoy the book being safe in your home instead of being sick in your home.